Oh, such a clutch off-season pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
Shop Blinds.com right now and get up to 40% off select styles, plus a free professional measure. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Build a routine with Ollie that supports your wellness needs, like getting your daily vitamins and minerals with Ollie's multi-gummies, or keeping your mood upbeat with all the vitamin D in Hello Happy. Give your gut health some support with probiotics, and wake up feeling refreshed after taking Ollie Sleep. Do wellness on your terms. Find Ollie at a Walmart or Target near you or at ollie.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
I think I just won my taxes.
Yeah?
I just switched to H&R Block in about 1 minute. All I had to do was drag and drop last year's return into H&R Block, and bam, my information is automatically there.
So I don't have to go digging around for all my old papers to switch?
Nope.
Sounds like we just leveled up our tax game.
Switching to H&R Block is easy. Just drag and drop your last return. It's better with Block.
Hey everyone, welcome to this edition of Spin, Shuffle, Skip on the There Can Only Be One podcast channel, a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. I've said it before on the show, and I'll say it again. Soundtracks ruled the 90s. They became touch points for pop culture. They were pop culture. They defined the zeitgeist of the time. And I don't think any other CD made as much noise in genre bending than the Judgment Night soundtrack. And here to pass judgment on this CD, Lyle Robichaud is back on the show. Lyle, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Jason. Doing awesome. Very excited to get into this one. This was a first listen for me. The only bands I really knew from here were Pearl Jam and Cypress Hill, which we'll get into later. But yeah, wow. If you like rap rock, do we ever have the episode for you?
And this felt like kind of the natural progression of what came before it. Of course, you had Aerosmith with Run DMC doing Walk This Way. And then you had Public Enemy and Anthrax doing Bring the Noise. And that changed a lot.
That was awesome. That's a great song. That is, I think, on pretty well every major sports playlist ever, I would imagine at this point.
Oh, absolutely. And trust me when I say, if any band is going to do an Anthrax song live, that's got to be it. But we're going to talk about the Judgment Night soundtrack. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to pick 3 songs each: a spin, a shuffle, and a skip. The spin is one that we hold in high regard. The shuffle is one that, you know what, if it comes on, why not? And the skip is one that is kind of self-explanatory. But let's give you a little background on this disc. The album was released September 14th, 1993, and peaked at number 17 on the Billboard 200 and is certified gold in the U.S. As mentioned before, they were bringing together some of the biggest rap and hard rock heavy metal artists at the time. And the same producer that put this soundtrack together also later worked on the Blade 2 soundtrack and the Spawn soundtrack. So you kind of see how that genre blending kind of worked well. There were 4 singles off of this one: Judgment Night, Just Another Year, Another Body Murdered, and Fallen. All very happy songs, clearly.
Yes.
Lyle, I'm going to pass this one over to you. Your spin pick from the Judgment Night soundtrack.
My spin pick has the 2 bands I mentioned earlier. That were the 2 that I was very familiar with. Big Cypress Hill guy, like them. Really fun and kind of an outlier in my music taste. So I picked Real Thing by Pearl Jam and Cypress Hill as my spin. It was just honestly the most enjoyable. Some of these are real abrasive, sandpaper levels of abrasive. That's your thing, great. But I'm more into kind of the ones that are a little more melodic, and this is one of them.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting Pearl Jam on this disc. I'll admit, I'm a little surprised that Anthrax isn't on here, but maybe they were busy. But I mean, you can't go wrong with Cypress Hill at all. I mean, the fact that they had Rock Superstar
Yeah.
Kind of tells you everything that you need to know. But I mean, I kind of like the fact that you had Pearl Jam on here, because that meant that it wasn't just metal and rap. Because keep in mind too, we're talking 1993, and grunge is huge as well. And it kind of feels too that the grunge kind of led the charge more than the metal did on this disc.
There was definitely a smattering in there. You could definitely tell this album was made in 1993. That's when I was listening to it. That's honestly what I kept thinking of. This is exactly the product of the year.
Yeah. And there are bands on here that actually have some of my favorite albums of all time. Now, whether I actually choose their song or not, it's a different story. I'll let you know, because there's one band on this disc that to me had the greatest album of 1994. But we're talking 93. So we're not in 94 yet. But let's get to my spin pick. And this one surprised me a bit, because I there were bands when I took a look at this, I'm like, oh, it's probably going to be them. It's probably going to... No. Mudhoney and Sir Mix-a-Lot teaming with Freak Mama.
I knew it was going to make one of ours.
But the thing is, it's not a heavy song. This is about as catchy as Syphilis. Like, it is a really fun, out of left field on the disc. And normally when a song kind of stands out like an outlier on the disc, I kind of steer away from it. But I'm steering right into this one because it's got some funk and fun to it.
I was just about to say it's so fun, which is, I think this album is a very, very hard album. There's very heavy music in this. Disorder by Slayer and Ice-T is one that I look at and is like, wow, that is very hard. However, this is one of them that was on my list of honorable mentions as well, because it's like, this is fun. I would listen to this non-ironically and really like it just because of the groove it has to it. It's so different from most other things on this album.
I mean, I listened to this song and I expected to hear on a Tony Hawk soundtrack as opposed to the Judgment Night soundtrack, because Judgment Night is definitely not a happy film at all. No. The song feels like the outlier, but I kind of wish they kind of leaned into this a bit more, because Sir Mix-a-Lot sounds like he's having a ton of fun. Mudhoney's putting down a good groove. This song kind of catches lightning in a bottle with this mix-up, because it's not a mashup that I would expect.
Yeah, 100. Well, I think that's what I was expecting this entire album. I was listening to it going, wow, these are just team-ups that, and even in the fringes of my mind, I never would have thought in a million years.
Yeah, no, this is someone producing like some 4D chess to put Mudhoney and Sir Mix-a-Lot and to come out with a song that is as boppy as it is.
Yeah, it's crazy. Someone cooked here. Someone did. And it was just like, you take all these raw ingredients that look like they should be volatile with each other. But in some rare cases, you get little gems like this where it really does work.
Flex your business with an American Express Business Gold Card. You'll earn 4 times membership rewards points on your top 2 eligible spending categories, like transit and electronics, each month, on up to $150K in combined purchases per year. Plus, you can now earn 3 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels booked on AmexTravel.com. Terms and points cap apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-gold. Amex Business Gold, built for business by American Express.
All right. You mentioned Slayer being a little harsh on this disc, but it's my shuffle pick.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it to be, because I mean, like, I've seen Slayer live and they're not necessarily my cup of tea. I mean, yeah, sure, Seasons of the Abyss, count me in on that song, but they're not necessarily my cup of tea. But yet here they are teaming with Ice-T and taking 3 songs from Exploited and turning it into a medley. It's actually really, really clever that they did this.
And it is probably I would say the 2 highest profile names on the disc. I don't think that goes too far without saying. Like
1993 Pearl Jam might be.
Yeah, for 1993, but in hindsight, I guess, like Slayer and Ice-T, those are some pretty crazy names to be together, but I don't know what it was. It was way too hard for me. And Ice-T was just, it seemed like he was there. You know what I mean? Like it felt a little phoned in on his part. Slayer's doing their Slayer thing full bore, as they always do. They don't do anything half.
I'm going to argue that though, because anyone who's listened to Ice-T doing his thing with Body Count, this kind of fits into that groove as well. And I love the fact that the second of the 3 songs from Exploited that they had was UK 82, but the fact that they changed it to LA 92 definitely fit like an Ice-T MO on this. And keep in mind too, this was actually the first Slayer that had Paul Bostaph on drums with him. This is after Dave Lombardo left. So yeah, you've got some like high energy on the drums with this. And Kerry King's doing some fantastic work, and so is Jeff Hanneman.
That's a crazy factoid. I didn't know this was the first song with him.
Yeah. So this is like, welcome to the band. Now get back there and cook.
Yeah, basically right into the furnace with you.
All right. What's your shuffle pick from the Judgment Night soundtrack?
My shuffle pick is another one that's kind of a bit of an outlier because it does lean more into kind of a different style. It's Missing Link by Dinosaur Jr. and Del the Funky Homo Sapien.
I was liking what Del was putting down on this.
That was fun. That's another one where I had a lot of fun listening to it. I'm just like, wow, this is out there, but in the best possible way. Again, just a different attitude from the rest of the stuff and kind of leans into the more older school rap on the album compared to some other things.
Yeah. And again, one of those combinations that on paper shouldn't work, but It does.
Dinosaur Jr. is really good.
Yeah. And Del the Funky Homo Sapien maybe didn't come in was the biggest name, but definitely came out with one of the funkiest grooves.
Yeah, and never hadn't heard of the artist until this, but then I went down a bit of a rabbit hole. And yeah, guys, it's fun.
Yeah, I mean, I had to point this out now. So now that I have my spin and my shuffle picks out there, Therapy actually had, to me, the best album from 1994 with their Trouble Gum disc, and I was surprised that I didn't pick it.
That's crazy. Therapy for 1994.
Oh my God. You have to hear Trouble Gum. It is that's an album and a half, and it doesn't get, also has one of the best covers of a Joy Division song.
They cover Joy Division.
Yes.
And now I'm interested because I didn't know Therapy until this album as well. So
you have to give that Trouble Gum. Personally, you can probably skip some of the other ones, but Trouble Gum, that was a serious lightning in a bottle album.
I just saved it on my Spotify list. I'm going to listen to it. I have to now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But now we get to your skip pick.
So unfortunately, the skip was a little difficult to pick because this is a wild album for me. A lot of highs and a lot of lows. There was a couple that I just was not vibing with, but Just Another Victim. The first opening salvo of this is just crazy to me that this is what you would pick to start off an album. I just couldn't get with it. I like House of Pain. I really do. Some of their stuff is really fun. Could not get into it. It kind of turned me off. I had to get back into the listening mood to go through with the album after this one, kind of out of the gate. So it's definitely Just Another Victim.
Which is a shame too, because if you go back to the greatest soundtrack the 90s ever produced, and that's the Crow soundtrack, and I will fight anyone on that hill. Helmet had one of the best songs on that disc with Milquetoast. So I was really stoked to hear what they were going to come up with, especially pairing them with House of Pain. Like that just seemed like a no-brainer match made in heaven. And you're right, it kind of fell a little flat. Like at first I'm like, okay, this is aggressive. Yes, but it's nowhere near as good as the two can do individually.
It's not as good as the two things that make it. It's not. House of Pain by themselves, amazing artists. I have so many of their old stuff saved, but I was going into it excited because I was like, okay, out of the gate, at least I know one of the artists on this because I had never listened, and a lot of these artists were first listens for me. So I was like, good, House of Pain to kick things off. This should be nice. It's going to kind of like, at least I have some familiarity. Wow, it was just completely blew me away in the wrong direction.
Yeah, it definitely leaned more into the Helmet rock, as opposed to where House of Pain would kind of bring the groove.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to go one song further in for my skip pick. I'm going with Fallen from Teenage Fan Club and De La Soul. And the only way I can describe this song is it's an energy vampire.
When I heard it, my immediate thought was, what is De La Soul doing here?
Yeah.
Of all of the names, De La Soul is the one that makes no sense.
Yeah. And with Teenage Fan Club, like You can put two artists together that are diametrically opposed and it works. But this is not that situation. And the worst part is it's the second song on the disc.
Exactly. So it says something that both of our skips are the first two tracks.
Yeah. I mean, you take a look, and again, I'm going to bring this soundtrack up because this should be the template for any movie looking to put a soundtrack out there. The Crow soundtrack. Heavy, 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 heavy. And you end with Jane Siberry doing It Can't Rain All the Time. But that's the perfect spot for that song.
Yes. Because it's thought out more. There's more feeling put into, okay, where does this flow the best and not just big names, big names, big names, big names.
Yeah. You land the plane softly. That's what you do. And this song, I think had this song been closer to the end of the CD, I could have not necessarily overlooked it, but definitely not felt so drained after hearing it.
Yeah.
Especially after Helmet and House of Pain.
That's a great way to put it. Draining. That's kind of how I felt listening to the beginning of this drained. It's kind of just like, oh, wow. And like once it's done, you're struggling to keep the energy up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't mean to disparage CDs because I love all music, right? I remember this CD to be bigger than it kind of sounded now.
Yeah, and see, as a first listener, when I did my research and looked in, this did make pretty big waves. Like even Rolling Stone had a couple articles out about how this was one of the, biggest for collaborations at the time. This was a meshing of two complete different cultures. Like this was two cultures coming together for the first time ever in history. And I was just like, wow, for all the hullabaloo that was made about it, it was very, very abrasive.
Yeah. This CD kind of felt like the gateway drug for what would eventually become groups like Limp Bizkit and Korn and everything that was Woodstock 99.
Basically, yeah. Break stuff. Break stuff would belong on this album easily.
And that's the thing. It was ahead of its time. Yes. And I remember like so many people's CD collections that I knew at the time had this CD in it. And 31 years later, I don't know. It just doesn't hold up. Maybe because we do have groups like Linkin Park that have done it and done it better.
People have perfected the formula.
Yeah. I mean, Public Enemy, Anthrax, they had it down pat. Even Linkin Park teaming up with Jay-Z, that worked out well. But
yeah.
And some of this did and some of it didn't.
It definitely feels like the ingredients were there. You know what I mean? Like, okay, this was the first time they did it, and they did make a huge thing of it at the time. But just like you said, people came around after and took the good bits. And we're like, okay, let's expand on this kind of corner of what happened here. And a lot was left on the cutting room floor with history, it seems like.
Yeah. It seems more like a touch point history moment than it does a necessity that shook the music world.
Yeah, the importance of it overshadows the actual substance of it.
Yeah, this wasn't an action CD. This was a reaction CD.
Exactly. Precisely.
All right, Lyle, remind our listeners what your spin, shuffle, and skip picks were from the Judgment Night soundtrack.
My spin was Real Thing by Cypress Hill and Pearl Jam. My shuffle was Missing Link by Dinosaur Jr. and Del the Funky Homo Sapien. And my skip was Just Another Victim.
All right, and for me, my spin was Freak Mama by Mudhoney and Sir Mix-a-Lot. My shuffle was Disorder from Slayer and Ice-T. And my skip was Fallen from Teenage Fan Club and De La Soul. Lyle, thank you so much for this. Please remind our listeners where they can find you out there on the interwebs.
You can find me at AM 640 Toronto. I'm on the Kelly Cotrera Show and Let's Talk with Danny Stover, either on the AM 640 radio dial if you're near the city of Toronto, or on the iHeartRadio app or Radio Player Canada.
All right, dude, thank you so much for this. And to you, our dear listeners, you guys know the drill. If there is an album that you want us to cover on Spin, Shuffle, Skip, or an artist that you want us to cover on There Can Only Be One, hit us up on social media at Only One Cast, or go to our website at notthatbadcast.com. And while you're there, make sure you check out all of our links for all of our social media platforms. We're out there on X, we're out there on Threads, we're out there on Instagram, Blue Sky, Spoutable, you name it, we're out there. Reach out, follow us so you know when new episodes drop no matter which social media platform you're on. Until next time, he's Lyle, I'm Jay. You guys are awesome. This is Spin Shuffle Skip on the There Can Only Be One podcast channel and a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Take care.
Hey, this is John Moses and Tyler Morrison from the Fight Stories podcast.
And we want to welcome everyone from Pantheon to check out the podcast that goes from pros to average Joes.
We got MMA champs, boxing champs, NHL tough guys, funniest comedians in the world, and of course, stories from guys like your drunk Uncle Tommy on Thanksgiving.
That's right, because we're the voice of the streets and we want to hear from you guys, because what's better than hanging out with your crew and reliving the old glory days?
Stories like Rigby, who put that guy's head through a popcorn machine in front of his 5- and 6-year-old son while eating chicken wings at the bar.
It doesn't get any better than that. Everyone has a fight story. We want to hear yours.